This is the digital goods panel. So we're here talking about digital goods, how awesome they are, how they're the future of the industry, how they're going to destroy the world for everybody else that doesn't get it. That's pretty much the goal, right? Is that everybody's there? So we've pulled together a really great group of people for this session. I'm super excited about the people we have, and we'll just kind of let you guys go across and give the quick version of who you are. We'll start right here, Dave.
Sure. So my name's Dave Laurel. I work at Playdom as a creative director. I'm pinch hitting for Omar Siddiqui, who's not able to be here today. And I've been working in production and design of casual and mass market games for about 16 years. Online casual, including ad-supported, microtransaction, and digital download for the last 11 or so. And just on Facebook for the last 3 years.
Hey, I'm John David. I head up social games at PopCap. And I've been at PopCap for about 5 years, working in various kind of direct-to-consumer capacities there. Before that, I was at Microsoft, where I worked in all kinds of casual gaming arenas. Anything from Abra games to the last thing I did there was the launch of Xbox Live Arcade on Xbox 360. So obviously a lot of digital distribution, download stuff there. And that's me.
My name's Chris Rogopoulos. I'm here on behalf of Harmonix, based out of Boston. We, among other things, I'm responsible for our digital businesses, probably most notably digital content sold to Rock Band now. As of last fall, also to Dance Central, which is our other active franchise. And we've been selling digital add-on content since 2007 for Rock Band. It's been a really nice piece of business for us, and so I'm happy to talk about that.
My name is Chris Herb. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for EA Sports. I run the identity and branding of EA Sports, as well as inbound and outbound licensing and promotions and marketing across our titles.
My name is Jennifer, and I head business development for TinyCo. We're a San Francisco-based mobile gaming startup. We make social simulation games. And before TinyCo, I worked at OpenFaint, which is a mobile gaming platform.
Cool. So we've got a few different questions that I'll throw out to the panel, but I definitely want to make sure that we're addressing whatever it is that you guys want to talk about. So if you have questions, you'll raise your hand, throw it out there, and we'll just try to keep it as interactive as possible. But just to get things started, especially we've got kind of a couple guys from EA Harmonix that are sort of traditional game space, and even PopCap, with the social side. I'm just curious, what kind of percentage of revenue does digital goods make up out of your business model? Is it 20%, 100%? Like where are you on that spectrum of how things go?
For EA, I think in the last 12 months we did about $833 million in digital goods. That's about a 46% increase over the last 12 months. So obviously it's one of the core things that we're kind of continuing to build out of what we do as a company. Obviously our partnership with PopCap that was announced last week, and a lot of the things we do in those spaces is really important, and we see in the growth of our company.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't do quite that much, but but the digital business for us has been huge in a couple different ways. I mean, as a percentage of revenue, I mean, I think we announced about 2 months ago that we went past 100 million song downloads for Rock Band, which is a big milestone for us at a price point of about $1.85. It's a pretty good business. And it's, despite some of the bad news around that category, it's been a really sustained source of revenue and continues to be. We're still releasing music every week, and we haven't missed a week since 2007 of new releases. So it's a really healthy business, and so yeah, as a percentage of our revenue, it's changing over time and growing. So we're definitely bullish on that part of the business.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually don't know exact percentages at all.
Okay.
But PopCap from the very beginning has always been about digital distribution, and it's generally been the majority of our revenue. We do a lot of physical as well, but typically with the download model, both on PC, web, console, it's always been the majority and growing. But the virtual currency sort of item buy model that's come along in the last couple of years has been, to be honest with you guys, tremendously surprising for us, and is a monstrous growth part of the business at this point. So it's kind of evolved of what digital distribution and the revenue streams that come with it looks like for us.
Okay.
And Playdum's clearly a dedicated virtual goods business. We have a few very, very small legacy ad-supported businesses on MySpace from some of our very early products, but we're 99% virtual goods, 99% plus.
And for TinyCo, it's very similar. All our games are ad-free and free-to-play, so we make practically 100% of our revenues off of digital goods.
Okay. So, kind of digging into this a little bit more, I mean, we've got a pretty fundamental difference between, Harmonix and EA and your guys' approach to digital goods, because you have to buy a $60 console game before you can start then paying for digital goods versus, Playdom and PopCap and you guys where it's a free game and you then are buying stuff into it. Does that kind of drive any fundamental differences for, how do you approach digital goods? Does it make a difference that Rock Band players paid $60 to buy Rock Band, and now we're asking them to pay $2 more a song?
Yeah, I mean, I think the models are fundamentally different at sort of the customer acquisition point. But we still, I think the similarities are that we still kind of look at our customers in kind of a funneled way, which is, I mean, we have to get someone first to pay $60 or whatever for Rock Band, but then we start asking the questions and looking at each point along the funnel. Are they on a connected console? And we kind of look at those numbers and figure that out. And if they are they downloading anything digitally? And that's a subset. And then if they are they actually paying money? And all the way down to people. We actually have customers, God bless them, who've bought almost everything we released, which is now 3,000 songs our catalog's at and growing. And so we kind of have the spectrum on that funnel. And at each step along the way, we're asking ourselves, well, what can we do? If anything, to kind of move people from that sort of phase of not being connected all the way through to being an active, ongoing weekly purchaser. So, I'm sure that at some of these other businesses, which some of my fellow panelists know more about, look at their customers in sort of a funneled way of how to convert them from that point of acquisition to actually monetizing them more consistently and effectively over time. So,
it's a little different for EA. I think that model is a little older. We had that same model. For us, it's really about choice. If you take, like, for the sports label, if you look at our FIFA game, we sell a $60 product, but we also have free play for free on Facebook with our FIFA Superstars model, and we also have Ultimate Team models where you can get the free game and then you can upgrade that stuff with booster packs or card packs that you can actually migrate into your $60 purchase. So I think it's really about leaving choice for the consumer of where they're going to kind of enter into the FIFA franchise, and we're starting to do that with a lot of our other things, but it's really about being able to play FIFA anytime, anywhere, and same with some of the other franchises, but it's about choice is really what we've been looking at.
I mean, from our perspective, I think we really feel like there is no substitute for free, right? That at the end of the day, because it is a funnel business, although we look at the conversion funnel, for us, the kind of paying conversion is a really, really distant part of the funnel process, right? From installation drop-off to tutorial success to successful re-engagement, we really don't expect to monetize those users day one. So it's really, but it's about getting that experience out there for everyone, making sure that all players can sample it, figure out if this is the right experience for them. And if so, we also want to make sure that we're providing a great ongoing, $0 experience that allows players to continuously engage and hopefully serve as viral evangelists and influencers for their friends who may ultimately convert to paying. They still bring value.
Yeah, very similar to what Dave was saying. Us, it's all about the funnel. How many eyeballs can actually see your game and then download your game, and then how to convert those people to paying users, and then how to convert the first paying users to be repeat customers. So for a free-to-play game, it's all about the reach and making your funnel as wide as possible in the beginning.
So I would actually invert one piece of that slightly. So one of our real learnings is, as opposed to sort of saying, how do we keep our payers in? Once someone is paid, we found that makes a tremendous difference in terms of retention, right? Just because of attachment and implied value. So we actually spend a lot of time thinking about, how can we open up that payment funnel more broadly, just because we know that will really, really help us retain those players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The first point of purchase is probably the the hardest to convert. And then after once someone pays, it's easier to get them to repeat.
So I know, I mean, a couple people have sort of mentioned, and Chris, I think you were very direct about sort of segmenting the users. You know if they're on a connected console or non-connected console, and obviously some of that really base stuff kind of doesn't apply on a mobile platform. But how much do you guys look at, like, does anybody sort of look at different usage patterns where somebody that plays every day is very different than somebody that plays once a week, and do you try to do different things to address those different usage patterns, or are we that sophisticated yet?
Well, one thing that's interesting for us is, so Bejeweled Blitz is actually available right now on 3 platforms, and those 3 platforms all kind of approach this funnel system differently. So our Facebook game's obviously free to play, and that's the wide open funnel at the top leading down to conversion at the bottom of paid customers. Our iOS product is Bejeweled 2 plus Blitz. We actually bundled Blitz mode in with Bejeweled 2, and the Bejeweled 2 product on iOS costs money up front. I think right now it's priced at 99 cents. It's been at varying levels with in-app purchase along the way for Blitz players. So it's actually a model where we charge a little bit of money up front and then convert via in-app purchase later. But we also have a download product as well that costs $20. That's the full screen premium version of Bejeweled Blitz for sort of your most hardcore serious players. And again, we do in-app purchase further down in that funnel as well. So we absolutely do know where our players play. We know which of our players play across all platforms. We're not a brilliant online marketing company that every second of the day is monitoring where people are playing and shuffling around. But we do keep a careful eye on it and run the appropriate pricing specials and events and things to try to encourage people to play how they want to play, to have the best experience, which we always think is going to end up monetizing it the best.
For us, it's all about looking how players interact in the game and how they're spending in our game. Since our games are free to play, the only way to actually generate revenue is to get people compelled and find good spending opportunities for them to actually put in a few bucks. And so we've, have a dedicated team of analysts and build up a great analytical platform with tools like Vertica and Tableau to understand each kind of process in a player's from when a player downloads the game to how they interact until they spend. So analytics is huge for us, and it's in other free-to-play games as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of looking at segmentation, not just along user behavior, which is really important to us to help us think about things like re-engagement or whale management. But even on demographics as well. One of the interesting things we found with our game City of Wonder, which some of you may have played on Facebook, it was a fairly successful title for us, was we actually optimized results by giving men a starting city that looked a little bit more militaristic, and women a starting city that looked a little more, kind of family-friendly, residential, right? So we just pulled the player's gender from Facebook and set them up accordingly, and that gave us not a huge, but a little bump in the business.
Okay. So, and Chris Erb, maybe you have kind of an interesting insight into this, and again, I think it'll be interesting to see the differences as we go around the panel, but what types of items make the most effective digital goods? What are you guys seeing in the EA titles? What do people want? What do people like to purchase? And what are the stuff that's just kind of been a waste?
Yeah, for us, it's, so going back a little bit to the last question, when we're managing kind of the consumers, we, around sports, we've got that, natural, real world kind of connectivity with our game. So, we did a lot of things for the PGA Tour, Tiger Woods this weekend because of the Open Championship that was going on, right? Or when there's trades with football players and when the deal gets signed with the NFL, that'll mean different dynamic things that we can do. So I think a lot of things that make sense to consumers for us are real world attributes that they can kind of bring into their games. Obviously, it's like probably everyone else, it's about the gameplay mechanics and the way you can improve the gameplay mechanics. Those are the things that are gonna be best. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago it was about jerseys and stadiums and small things like that. Now it's about gameplay mechanics. Consumables are really important. How do you really build the right economy around consumables and make that feel like it's worth buying, and as well as kind of the real world things that we see work really well for us.
What we've seen are functional items rather than just mere decorative items that sell the best. So functional items like things that will help players generate more coins or level up faster. We saw that players are very, I guess, careful about how they spend their time, and anything that will help them get through something faster sells very well.
So you see players kind of min-maxing the systems that you set up for them and buying stuff appropriately?
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, so Platinum has a couple of different sort of broadly bifurcated offerings. One are sort of traditional Facebook ISO decoration games where you're trying to build up the nicest space and kind of mold the system, whether that's, a business or, your garden in Gardens of Time. We also have some really hardcore competitive games. Our RPGs like Mobsters and Sorority Life are all about players fighting players. And players who like to fight players love buying competitive advantage and buy a lot of it. That's a very lucrative market to be in.
So are there any areas that you guys have seen big pushback? I mean, stuff that like, wow, we really shouldn't have done that. Players revolted, or just it completely didn't sell at all. What's sort of the negative things that people should avoid trying to do that you've seen or heard about?
One that we're very sensitive towards, that we might err too much on the side of caution because we've never really gotten into trouble with our players, is for both Bejeweled Blitz and Zuma Blitz, these are score-based competitive leaderboard games. We could sell high scores, right? You could do it, and for about a week, everyone would buy them, and then everyone who doesn't pay would get very frustrated by that and stop playing, and the wheels would fall off the thing. So we're very, very cautious with how we balance the ability to buy currency that drives our power-up system. And hopefully we never stray over that line, because if you do, I think you'll see a short-term jump in revenue and a very quickly followed drop in populations and frustration with your player base.
But that's you think that's probably because it's a very high score-based system.
Exactly. It's competitive, and you got to be careful there. One other thing we've seen that's a challenge is Zuma Blitz actually is a leveling game. You level up to level 80. And we sell sort of XP accelerators and extra energy and stuff like that, which it sells very well. That does well. But if you are doing a level-based game, you have to be careful with that stuff, because people will pay for it, and your most loyal and dedicated players will pay for that because they just want to level, and then they cap out, and now you've got an elder game problem that will really bite you hard, because your most important retention-focused players who monetize the best are now bored. So you got to be careful with that as well.
Okay. Any other horror stories or things that people kind of got upset about when you put them into the games, or maybe you realized that they were going to get upset right before you launched it? Or?
I think for us, we haven't upset any fans around it, but I think just maintaining authenticity is always important for the things that we do, right? So we don't, you'll never see, you're not able to run faster in Madden, or shoot a basket better, or any of those things that are not real world that we can make a lot of money on, right? But we stay away from that. I think we've dabbled in kind of monetizing kind of strategy around Madden, so you can pay to see predictabilities of what your competitor is going to do. Like 80% of the time, this guy runs to the left. Then they can buy back something that says, okay, they just saw what you're going to run. So we've dabbled in that a little bit on the console games. That sold decently well, but I think it's always about. I think we have core values of what we're trying to do as a brand, and I think we never look at those and try and monetize, for straying away from those. Very, very similar to what you're saying about your leaderboards. We don't want to change the competition level, and we don't want to change the authenticity level.
So I've seen, there are two categories of fails that I've seen, right? So one is sort of what you were, alluding to, John, that, if you are going to sell stuff to your whales, you need to either realize that you're running a whale tank, which is sort of the kabam strategy on Facebook. It's like, if you don't want to be hardcore and you don't want to grind and you don't want to pay, it's not your game. And we have some communities that are like that. And that's okay. Those communities can be, very lucrative. They're just small and focused and hardcore. But, if you don't want to do that, if you want to be mass and sell competitive advantage, you need very, very good systems for keeping the sharks out of the minnow tank and vice versa. So matchmaking systems are really important. And then the other thing I've seen just for decorative items is, your audience knows when you're mailing it in. And they really don't care that much about the yellow beach umbrella versus the blue beach umbrella versus the red beach umbrella. They care that you're doing stuff that's relevant, that you're investing in, that brings some creative spark and charm into what you're doing. and they can kind of smell the apathy when you mail it in.
So we've got a bunch of questions, but I don't know if anybody has questions from the audience that you want to kind of throw out now, or? Okay. Yeah.
How's Facebook requiring everyone on Facebook to use their own currency? How's that affecting the digital goods in your games and, I guess, monetization of those?
For us, it hasn't made much of an impact. I mean, you just have to get in line and roll with it. It's Facebook, right? So we haven't seen a drop off of, in what that meant to us.
Yeah, so we've actually, for the most part, been exclusive with Facebook credits for the past year and a half since we've been on Facebook monetizing. There was a lot of kind of pushback from a section of the developer community around that requirement. We've been on a variety of gaming platforms over the years, and those platforms bring to you an audience and a set of services that then make it possible for you to distribute your game and monetize, right? And I guess, take this with a grain of salt, because I used to work at Xbox Live. There's value in that, right? We don't expect that for free. And when you have a partner like Facebook that is blowing out the number of people that play games, so that you can get your games towards, or to, it's perfectly fine to understand that we have to share in some of this with the platform. So it didn't really surprise us, nor did it hurt us or have any ill will. We completely understand that the value of that platform is very high.
I think at Playdom, we're lucky to sort of have a fairly broad game offering on the platform. So, 30% off the top is a lot if your business was based on zero previously, right? That presents some challenges, but what we're able to do is do a lot of experimentation and learning and optimization with some of our smaller products early on to help us understand how we could sort of optimize that purchase flow around Facebook credits. So at this point, I feel like, it's worked out fine for the company, but there was a lot of work and a lot of learning to get to that point.
So, obviously we're all kind of big believers in digital goods. I think the key question is this going to be the only model that we have? How long until freemium plus digital goods is really the only model? I mean, there'll always be some aspect of physical sales, but how far out are we from this being the dominant model in the industry?
What time is it now?
Well, I could speak for the mobile market. Flurry Analytics, they have this report that shows the revenues generated by the top 100 grossing games. And at the beginning of the year, it was about 35% freemium and the rest for paid games. That number jumped 6 months later to 65%. And we think it's going to hit almost like 90% by the end of this year. And there's a few reasons why people are just want to have free content, and with just so many apps in the App Store, it's hard for a paid game to get up to the top grossing charts, because it's all about distribution and the number of people who download your games. So we think that freemium is going to dominate very soon, at least for mobile.
Okay. I don't know if either one of the Chris's want to jump on that, but.
I mean, Best Buy's still selling CDs and DVDs, right? So the digital's the right direction. How long does it take for everything? I mean, if you look at our industry, $30 billion has come out of the console, $2 billion has come out of social, right? They're different sized. So for a huge shift to happen, I think it's different. I think the freemium stuff is awesome. I think it's great. I think we have a huge stable of play for free games within EA Sports. I think we've got 4 or 5, from FIFA to Madden to our World Series games to golf. That's all free, and I think so that platform definitely works well. But I think you still have your hardcore consumers that are still going to buy your $60 games, because it's a different kind of experience than the social experience. And as we've always looked at social as kind of an entry into the market, obviously it's not. It's becoming a bigger piece of the market. So I think those, to me, in personal opinions, I think those will coexist for a while, and I think that's great, because I think you're going to get that cross-platforms. Do I want to play FIFA on my couch, or do I want to play it on my iPad, or do I want to play it on my iPhone? And I get to pick and choose how I'm going to connect. And I think one of the things you'll see with our games is whatever you're doing on all those platforms, there's going to be a persistence that you're going to earn credit for. And I think that's one of the things we've been talking about is how do we make all of your interactions within our brand a persistent, valuable move, right? So whether I stop playing on my Xbox and I jump onto an iPad, I get credit for both of those things that I just did. So I see persistence as kind of really being where we're going. And I think a lot of people go is you're getting credit for whatever you're doing, however you want to do it.
Yeah, and I would just, I mean, for at least for us, I mean, the concept of, of freemium has been on our minds for a long time. And, in many ways, we're just in somewhat kind of gated by, the consoles themselves and what they make available to us. And I think they're partners in this as well. And forward-looking, it's just things move, at a certain pace, right? And so, for us, even just sort of as a midpoint, you talk about how long are people going to be willing to pay $60 for a piece of plastic in the store. But I mean, even for us, like we took a somewhat unconventional approach to pricing at retail, meaning we've been very aggressive, probably maybe surprisingly aggressive at times in terms of price, price cuts at retail, which could be perceived one way, but for us, I mean, it's really because the digital piece for something like Rock Band is so big, and the downstream revenue for having a larger installed base is so meaningful to us. We're happy to try to push Rock Band 3 out at $19.99 when we can do it if we're in lockstep with our distribution partner, because we know that we're not really that worried about the margin that we make on that disc, because we know that once that disc gets into somebody's hands, it's a much more there's a lot that comes from that with the kind of library that we have and the value of that digital content once someone has it. So I mean, I see the trend absolutely moving in that direction, where you have opportunities to get in on an experience at sort of free or low cost, and then monetizing it downstream. I think everyone's kind of heading in that direction.
So the thing that's interesting for us is, one, obviously freemium is going to be a major part of the landscape moving forward, and if you're just ignoring it, not believing, that's a bad place to be. That being said, we're sitting here at a game developers conference, and you guys have probably heard us say at least 20 times so far the word funnels, conversion funnels. It's kind of scary to me as somebody who really wants to be a part of making great games, because a lot of brilliant game designers are capable of thinking in that way and thinking about conversion funnels and thinking about the path through of a freemium game. But there's a lot of really brilliant game designers out there who that freaks them out. And they're brilliant game designers, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to make great games in whatever sort of gaming landscape we're heading towards. So while freemium it's here to stay, it's a big part, it's going to keep growing, we also kind of look at it as we have a lot of people at PopCap who are pretty good at making games, and we don't want to force them to make a game for a particular business model or a particular conversion metric. So I kind of hope that there's actually a world out there in a few years where a great game can find its path to commercial success via whatever avenues are available at the time, and freemium might not be the only one. That being said, I'm the guy at PopCap that pushes freemium pretty hard, so we'll see.
So, I mean, how much of that, just to drill into it a little bit more, because, I mean, this is something I personally struggle with in our business, is, there is a difference, and there are some people that believe, making games and sort of designing for the freemium model is kind of harming the core beauty of the gameplay that they're trying to make. And there are other people that just embrace it as, it's just one of the constraints. Just like if you're on a phone, you've got a really small screen, and it's just one of the constraints. I mean, how much do you guys deal with as you work with game designers? How many people do you think are kind of stuck in, like, they think it's a bad thing that they have to force into game design, and how much you use it as just one more mechanic and one more constraint that's part of what makes their games and their titles great?
I've been designing games for a lot of platforms for a long time, and that line of rhetoric just makes me angry. Like, I spent a lot of time working in the kind of downloadable industry. I spent about 3-4 years of my life on that, on PC downloads, where so much is about the initial on-ramp, user engagement, working in a low-investment open box category, understanding the 60-minute time conversion curve, the level lock, and how to sort of force people across that and entice it. And that was just a set of design tropes you had to learn to be effective in that category, right? And if I try and take my games onto a console where, they're bright, colorful, flat fill, 2D, simple, accessible, and sell that for $60, I'm gonna have a hell of a time there. You know, you need to understand your customer, you need to understand your platform, and you need to deliver for that. And I think it's good that, you know, we still have robust businesses in a variety of places so that people can kind of find their water level and find their audience. But if you want to play in this category, you have to play by the rules of this category.
I think it's very similar to entertainment, right? You've got ABC for free, cross-broadcast television, you've got HBO, which you pay for, and then you've got theatrical movies that you pay to go to, or there's DVDs you can buy to see them. I think there's different ways to engage in that visual medium, and I think there's different ways to engage in our visual medium, and for us to force everything into the freemium mode doesn't feel right. I think, for me, it's about choice for consumers, and so if people want to play that way, then I need to produce those kind of content or they're not going to play with us, right? And for the people that want to play on the bigger, you know, the HD kind of models, and we need to build something for them as well.
Do you have any more? Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that's always struck me as curious is this substantive gap between what Asia's doing with micropayments, downloadable digital goods, and the, frankly, arrogance of American developers. And you look at companies like Exxon and what they're Nexon, which is almost as large as Exxon. And they've done some incredibly innovative things. I was just curious what your perspectives were, and how much do you look at what Asia's doing? And I always hear U.S. game companies go, yeah, but it's China, and they got a lot of people, and blah, blah, blah. You've got all these other obstacles, you know, in mobile around tariffs and so forth, making it punitive to use games on mobile phones. What do you see as the next way? What do you look towards? Are you looking at Asia much for models, or?
So, about 3 or 4 years ago, PopCap opened an office in Shanghai that's head up by James Gortzman. And James went over with the company, essentially, but James is a very effective kind of leader and doer. He went over with the perspective that we can't just roll into China and expect to kind of sell games the American way, made by a bunch of Americans here, and then just sort of pushed into their business models. And we actually opened an office over there with, and he hired up, I think, of that office, 95% are locals from Shanghai or from China, and they know the games they love, the games they play, and they're going to take our brands and kind of adapt them to that model. What was really interesting was when that office first opened, I went over there, and this was before we were really, Bejeweled Blitz was even in existence yet, actually. I went over there and I realized how different things were, and it was all about online, all about connected. Anything disconnected is pirated in a heartbeat. You could buy all of our games on a DVD for $1. I did it, actually. So it didn't seem, the design philosophies are a bit different. I kind of feel like the games I've seen coming out of Asia, as well as the way our designers in Asia work, they're a little bit more intricate and complicated. They're not as simple and straightforward as we do over here sometimes. But what's happened in the last 3 years is we've really, like, the paths have started coming more and more together. Not because we forced them together, but I was over there late last year, and it was now Bejeweled Blitz was out, Zuma Blitz was on the horizon, sitting down with their designers, and I realized we are speaking the exact same language here now. And it's not that we forced it. I think the market has steered us in that direction. If you're asking for, do we look at China as kind of the next thing or the next path forward, we explore all kinds of crazy things that could be the next thing or the next path forward, and obviously having an office over there and people on the ground doing great things and cool things really helps with that. But I think, if anything, the worlds have come together a good bit in the last few years, and they were pretty far apart 5 years ago.
All right, so I mean, we've talked a little bit about different platforms, and John, I know you specifically said, like, Bejeweled Blitz you've got on Facebook and iPhone, and then the PC downloadable. Is there different platforms or different consoles? Do you guys harmonics? Do you see differences between Xboxes and PlayStations? What are the platforms that tend to kind of convert better? What are the ones that do worse?
You're trying to get me in trouble.
I am.
We love everybody.
Yeah. We love them all. I mean, they're all, I think that the differences between the platforms are, I think, pretty well understood. I think everyone's interested in at the console level in being competitive and trying to do what they can. I think without naming names, they've had varying degrees of focus in online commerce and supporting downloadable content. So we've had tremendous success on some platforms and little to none on others. And, you know, I think that will continue to evolve, because I certainly, I think all the major console providers recognize that they have to be at minimum competent in that area, if not more so, to be competitive going forward, because it's for everyone, it's a bigger piece of the business, you know, every month, so.
I think as a group too, I think innovation is the thing that excites us. So no matter which one you're partnering with, or if you're going across all of them, it's the drive for innovation. So from Wii U to Connect to Move and what's next and beyond that, I think that's the thing that gets us fired up. Is, you know, we're literally content. So whatever the content provider can allow us to kind of play within is what's exciting.
Okay. I mean, John, how about you guys? I mean, do you see kind of significantly different conversion rates from, you know, downloadable users versus the freemium users? I mean, I know we talked about funnels, so there's orders of magnitude of different numbers of users, but, you know, how?
That's a really hard comparison to make if you're looking at sort of what's the conversion of an Xbox Live Arcade player versus the conversion of a Bejeweled Blitz on Facebook. They're really very different worlds.
Okay.
I could try to make something up, but I don't have it in my head right now.
All right. And Jennifer, I mean, I know you guys are, you know, definitely on iPhone. Do you have Android stuff yet?
We have Android also, yeah. So for us, looking at mobile, it's comparing iOS and Android, and our conversion rates are just enormously higher on iOS. And that's simply because, well, the biggest thing is that the friction for having a seamless way to buy things on iOS, whereas on Android, it's much harder to do. You have to put in your credit card information and go through kind of a tedious process. Whereas Apple is smart and forced you to have an iTunes account when you first purchased your iPhone, and therefore buying something is just as easy as hitting install. So.
Okay. Do you have more questions from the audience? There's one back here.
Excuse me for my English, first of all. I have a very specific question. When you have a game with in-game currency, like you have gold coins or whatever, and you have virtual goods as well, what works best as to sell to the player? Is it the money or the good? I mean, you can sell 1,000 gold coins, or you can sell, you know, a green hat. What do you think works best in your opinion?
From our perspective, you know, having that currency works a little bit better. There are various things that you can do in terms of sort of merchandising control and manipulation to offer the user fewer options rather than kind of overwhelm them with 100 different things they can buy. They can buy 5 different currency bundles. You have some remnant inventory stuff that pops up. We also feel like it's a good practice to kind of seed users with some virtual currency that they can make decisions about spending and start to explore the value proposition of the cool stuff they can get.
For us, you can only buy a currency and then use that currency to buy goods, and I think it relates to the real world where you have like money and then you spend it on whatever you want to buy. So it just helps, I guess, our users understand how to buy inside of our games, since they do that, since it's similar to the real life.
And have any of you guys tried doing stuff with kind of the way you price it to sort of make it difficult for people to easily convert, you know, 10 coins in your game to $1 kind of thing? I mean, I know that was one of the perceived reasons why you get 1,600 Microsoft points for $20. Like, it's not an easy conversion, so it's hard to say that this game's $5. Has anybody tried that or looked at that with your virtual currencies? Or
Are you asking if you've tested kind of different price points?
Yeah, sort of tested different price points, but I mean, I think like if it's 10 coins for $1, then it's really easy to say, well, 1 coin is 10 cents, and the conversion to real world money is really easy versus making it hard.
I think it's a pretty standard best practice in the industry to sort of provide volume conversion bonuses on virtual currency. It's one of the things that, you know, console vendors typically haven't done as much of, but if you go look at a typical free-to-play game, you might get, you know, 5 coins for $1 or 30 coins for $5 or, you know, 500 coins for $50, right? There's always a kind of increasing conversion arc to try and pull users to those higher price points.
Okay.
Yeah, agreed. for the more coins that you buy, we like to discount them, just like what happens
Okay.
in the real life.
All right. I think there's a question over here, Matt.
Yeah, what are your biggest growth drivers now in your respective businesses, and what do you see that your biggest growth drivers might be a year from now?
Depends on the platform, really, right? So for console stuff, it's, it's bandwidth and storage spaces, right, is kind of key for that stuff. On marketing exposure for iOS and upgrade, it's really the user base and growing that user base in different ways, right? You don't really need to grow your Facebook user base, but you do your iPad and iPhone kind of things. And then I think for us, it's storage on consoles is really key.
So I've been working in social games for about 3 years, and there have been some really interesting transitions in terms of what the growth drivers for individual properties are over the last couple of years. Obviously, your ability to monetize your audience and understand monetization, understand, sort of payment conversion has always been reasonably central. But about 3 years ago, there was a huge focus on really sort of decoding virality and kind of breaking the viral channels and trying to figure out how you could sort of get the maximum growth out there with a general understanding that customers were free and plentiful and the market would grow infinitely, right? So you could just sort of throw bad product out there, pull a bunch of people in, a few will stick, and you build a business on that, to a point now where it's very much an engagement and retention business. Thankfully, your game quality, the level of fun, the level of appeal, the level of user engagement matters far more than anything else in terms of the success of your business. If you have that retention and engagement, you can find a way to monetize, and you can get to the point where your customer value is high enough that you can sort of afford to advertise and afford to scale that way. So that's been a huge transition in the business over the last 3 years.
For us, the real simple answer, because we say it internally all the time, is social and mobile. That's much higher level than the answer that you guys just gave. But we basically think that, continuing to move into the freemium model on social and into environments where people can draw their friends into games that they enjoy. That's very, very important. Like, they're having a great time, they want to bring their friends in. And also the mobile market is just obviously exploding. And overall for us, it's really a shift towards games as services versus, just packaged up, one-time payment, go have fun, we'll never hear from you again type of models.
Yeah, I would just say what he said. I mean, for us, it's the platform expansion and trying to get a read on kind of the direction that's heading is always a challenge, but it also creates opportunity and further to that point. And we've been very, very active in managing kind of Rock Band and now Dance Central purchasers, not as like discrete events, but just it's a community that you have to cultivate and build brand loyalty and that we continue to do that aggressively week in and week out. And so like for us, the big challenge is adapting to the shifts in the platform and model, which we're excited about. And I think for the IP that we do have right now, we're looking for ways to adapt that and actively investing in that, and then obviously always doing new IP development. It's just something that we've always done and look forward to doing on some of the newer platforms that are growing and creating a bigger opportunity.
Got to say that live interaction with the customers and the community too is just a lot more fun.
Yeah.
At least for me, than doing packaged goods. Right?
Definitely.
When you get a kind of lovable product out there, you can really dialogue with those customers and find out or figure out from their behavior what it is that they love and extend that and kind of build in partnership. It's very powerful and very compelling.
Yeah, and that's where the competition is really like. There's a lot of people in social games, console games who are basically fighting for those gamers. I mean, I think any one gamer can only really reasonably be expected to belong to a handful of communities actively, and so everybody's trying to create that community that is the place that you want to spend your time, whether it is driven off of a console title or a social title or some, as we'll probably end up seeing shortly, a mixture of the two put together. So I think it's a fun way to compete, like you said, but that's where we're pretty focused.
I think I saw another hand over here somewhere. No? All right. Well, sort of related to what we've just been talking about a little bit. Where is the digital goods space going? What's the big changes we're going to be seeing over the next 2 to 4 or 5 years?
We've seen a lot of corporate partners stepping into the space and finding new ways to kind of work with us. I mean, it's interesting. It used to be a different advertising model that they just want to see their stuff within games. I ran Madden for the last 5 years before I took the new role. A lot of the partners were like, we just want to be in Madden. We want to be in Madden. Until we got to a point where we were like, we're not putting people in Madden. So how are we gonna actually work with you? And we did a huge program last year with Doritos, which was perfect for our audience because they're going to eat chips anyways. How do we kind of connect those two, but not make it feel like advertising? Because we really don't want advertising. We wanted to find a better way to kind of connect with partners, and it was great because it was working with Doritos. They're like, look, we don't want to be in Madden. We just want to do something really cool. And so it was like, oh, that's awesome. So like, how do we figure it out? We ended up coming up with 3 programs for last year. Number one, the first one was we actually let Doritos consumers pick the cover of Madden, which was kind of a big deal for us. We've never kind of let anybody behind that curtain of how the cover is chosen. And so that was a big deal for them, is to actually allow their Dorito consumers to go online and vote for the cover. That was a part of it, but to extend it, we wanted to do something around launch. So we actually made this sounds gross, a Madden flavored Doritos chip. Keyword was inspired by Madden, so it wasn't football flavored, but we did like stadium nachos and tailgate barbecue and stuff like that, inspired by Madden. And now those are the first 2 chips that have promotional chips, which they do 10 to 12 promotional chips a year. Those are the first 2 promotional chips that have ever outsold Cool Ranch and Nacho Cheese in the history of Frito-Lay. So that told them like, okay, like our audience is paying attention, like we're legit. And then I think the third thing was in November we came back and we allowed consumers to actually play Madden in 3D, and the only way you could do that is from a code that was on the Doritos bags. So again, it was really, the concept was a consumer would say like, yeah, I just played Madden in 3D. How'd you do that? Well, I got it off my Doritos bag. Or, Doritos gave me a better experience within Madden, so we never sold that. It wasn't like for $5 you can play in 3D. We actually literally put it on the disc, we hit it, you take a code off the bag, and you can totally unlock it. And so that was a, kind of an eye-opening, kind of finding the right partner that wanted to do the right things with us. And so we really have been working really hard. My group runs all the promotions across EA Sports. Is when we're engaging with these big brands, we have to do it in the right ways, because it's not about advertising. It's how can these partners of ours deliver a better experience for consumers.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So I mean, maybe to take that a step further, one of the sponsors for the conference is TapMe, that's kind of doing sort of brand sponsored in-game stuff. I mean, is that something that everybody's kind of looking at of how to bring brands in? I mean, obviously EA has had some tremendous success with that. Is that something that other people are looking at?
Well, I would just, I don't know if I'm going to answer your question or not, but the whole concept of branding in games has been huge for us. It's probably non-obvious to people who look at Rock Band from the outside. They may just think that we just pick music, but a huge part of what we do, and the reason we've been able to license, like I said, we've got 3,000 songs in the catalog, is because it's really a partnership with the record labels and the artists themselves. I mean, we released music to Rock Band this spring with day and date with Ozzy Osbourne and his re-release of his CD. He remastered 2 CDs from his solo career. We did the same. We did something similar with the Foo Fighters when they released a new album. And so it's actually, it's not just about selling content. It's about working closely with brand partners and who when you have the community that we just were talking about, and people paying close attention to what you're doing with the game, it gives you a lot of leverage to do more interesting things like the Doritos thing. And so the reason that we're able to work with some of the greatest artists in the music industry is because we have a platform to work with that has value to them beyond just sending them a check for their music.
And to that point, the collaboration is really the key, because my development team will hate us if we don't do this the right way. So not just delivering truckloads of chips to their cubes, like that's part of it, but the other part of it is we never would have been able to have done Madden in 3D because we just don't have a budget for that, right? Or they don't have time for that. So if we find a partner to help, I literally sit with the dev team and be like, okay, what do you guys want to do that you can't afford? And everybody has that list of the features that are going to be in the game, and my favorite features are the ones that get cut because those are the ones that we want to grab and find a way to get done. Coke was a really good example with World Cup. We had an awesome feature in our World Cup game. It was called Road to the World Cup, and the idea was every team that makes it to the World Cup has to get there a specific way. And so what we wanted to do was create a mode where, the U.S. got to the World Cup because we beat Spain, right? So how do we drop a consumer in the middle of that game, and how do you actually score that second goal, or how do you stop us from scoring that second goal, right? It was a mode that was really cool, but we were unable to afford. So we actually went to Coca-Cola, and Coke Zero was sponsoring the World Cup, so their whole motto is make the impossible possible. So we took that and kind of built that mode around how do you make the impossible possible. So we literally were able to show consumers, here's how every country got into the World Cup. Can you do that as well? And not only was it, the dev team loved it so much, they were like, let's do this live during the World Cup. So every night at the end of the match, they'll create that match, and then people could download it for free because of Coke Zero. So again, it was a way very close to what he was saying about finding that collaboration, so someone else going to fund something that we can't afford.
And the thing that's important about digital goods in this respect is, if you've worked on a console title where you're trying to ship at a certain point in time with 2 years of development leading up to it, it's really difficult to time brand partnerships to that release. Whereas when you're working with digital goods, you just have so much more flexibility around timing and rapid development around things that come up, because the lead times on brand initiatives like a Doritos thing or whatever, they're just much shorter. So you just have a lot more flexibility to work with brand partners in a digital world than we ever would have had in trying to release a disc at a certain time leading up to holiday or whatever.
So one thing that is true, though, is I think, and this is something that you've been touching on implicitly, it's important to make sure that you're giving your customers something that is relevant and meaningful to them and makes sense. Playdom was purchased a few months ago by a company with a fairly strong brand. You may have heard of it, the Walt Disney Company. And what we did find out through some experimentation is just having stuff out of that Disney brand in the game is not a magic key to money, right? That how you craft the items, how you make them relevant, how you make them feel like part of the game is really, really critical to their success.
And that's a big challenge. I think there's a lot of ways that you can try to unlock the value of the community, but you've got to be really careful in walking that line. It's like, if we try to go out to our Rock Band consumers with something that made no sense for the brand, in terms of a co-sponsor, that can do some damage. Whereas, so you have to have kind of strong brand management sensibility there, or else the brand loses value over time, and the community looks elsewhere. So I agree 100% with what we just said.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Coke is a sponsor of the World Cup, and Doritos is an NFL sponsor. So those things work well within those games. Would that work for like a giant Dead Space Doritos machine? I don't know. Right? Probably not. So yeah, I can't agree more that you just have to find the right partners in the right space and not force it, and deliver that good experience on top of that.
So you'll have to work with Tang on Dead Space then.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So coming back to the question before that, the future. Where is this industry changing? And Jennifer, I don't know if you have your thoughts on what does this space look like 3 years from now?
Well, I think right now digital goods, just the revenues generated are pretty huge. I think Instat, which is a mobile gaming industry analytics firm, looked at the revenues generated last year, and it was about $7 billion, and they predict that it's going to double or more than double by 2014. And on mobile, there's several reasons why that'll happen, and just because the first thing is that we're seeing more and more people spend time on the web, not only through desktop but also through their mobile phones. So just the usage of the internet and digital goods is growing rapidly. Secondly, just the process of paying for digital goods on your phone is becoming more seamless, with Boku and PayPal innovating in that area. And lastly, I think game designers are just focusing more on looking at how to make their games more engaging, finding compelling spending opportunities. So in that terms, they're going to be helping out and making their games and using analytics to find more compelling digital goods to sell and to tweak their games in order for people to purchase more things inside of them. So.
One thing that I think has really happened in North America is we've started to get, I think, really good at, sort of thin client in browser, or small mobile app free for casual players. We're really good at that now. There's a question earlier about the Asia market, where there's a lot more delivered to more hardcore players through, free, thick client, 300 meg, 1 gig download. And we're not good at that yet in North America. And I think if you try and look 3 or 4 years into the future of digital goods, I think these guys over here will sort of be reasonably close to forgetting about the discs and really thinking about how do we deliver that 2 gig experience to you through the fat pipe and upsell you from there, getting into that super broad funnel mode, right? How do you stop cutting out everybody who doesn't want to plunk down $50 for that 3D console experience and find a way to get, $250 out of them instead.
Okay. John?
But it's funny, it's hard for me to talk about what the future of digital goods in particular will be. I kind of like the end of Jennifer's answer, which is, to me, there's like this huge blank white canvas in front of game designers and developers right now, right? Distribution models are fairly wide open. The ability to monetize and how you do it is fairly wide open. The ability to share games with friends is wide open. I think the innovation is actually going to come from game design, and how digital goods become a part of that. We'll have to see what the games are and what that's going to look like, but it'll absolutely be a part of that.
Yeah, I mentioned this before. I mean, I think with digital, you just have so much more flexibility, and with that, I think we'll just see a lot of interesting experimentation. And I don't think I could really say much more than that, other than that there's just, there's a lot of room for creativity in the space to just, to try things, and it's because of the nature of a lot of these platforms and where it's heading. There's a lot more room for a lot more people to dabble in that space for better or for worse. The barriers to entry are lower, and that scares the hell out of some of the established players. But it's true and it's a reality, and so it's going to be fun to watch.
Okay.
I think it depends on the platform. I think the question's really for Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo when you talk about the console stuff more than us. We play by those rules. I think the social side is awesome. I think that it's an open sky, and what can we do? I'll see PC growing a ton, right? Because I think that connectivity and that persistence that I talked about a little bit is really the key, whether that be from your PC to your social phone, from your social platform to your mobile platform, and how does that connect back to the consoles if they get that right. And so I think I like the blank canvas kind of thought that, I think it's still out there. I don't think there's an answer yet, but it's much more exciting now talking about moving from the last generation to this generation, this generation to the next. No one knows yet, and I think that's what's scary and exciting.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up the panel. Thank you very much for coming.